So welcome and thank you for being here. Our practice today will be one of experiencing spaciousness, the capacity to overflow, and also untying some of the constrictions that keep us from that ability to grow. So, I think that everyone is right now in some state of fear, whether it's fear for your life or your livelihood, fear for your loved ones, fear for the future, what's going to happen. Everyone has those feelings of fear, and I want you to just think for a moment before we get started. What does that feel like when you are gripped with fear? Where does that register in your body? And you can type in an answer. I'm far enough away from my video screen that I can't see your answers, but I will answer them at the end. But just sit for this a moment, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you're tuning into me cosmically or via this live stream. Where does fear register in your body? If you're like me, it's a gripping in the gut. It's a feeling of I need to protect myself. And the most vulnerable place of our physical bodies is our gut, because it doesn't have a protective sheath like our ribs do around our heart, or our skull around our brain. The belly's intelligence is sponge-like and unprotected. And this is the place of deep knowing that is not even transmittable by language, right? So we call that intuition, and it is, it's deeper than intuition though. It's absolutely the source, and fear is the stoppage of our capacity to create. So one of the terms I learned was granti. Granti means knot. And when we have a knot in this space, and we think about this space, think about what happens here. The transmission from food to flesh happens here. That's a creative process. Of course, if you're female and you have a uterus, this is where we actually create a new being, right? So intense creative process happens in this space. But even if you don't have a baby, you have the capacity for the creative juices. The flow of creativity happens in this space. And when we have fear, we begin to knot up that capacity for creation. So there's a creative force. There's a force of just holding and preserving, and then there's a force of disintegration or death, right? So the force of creation is known as Brahma. So this is called a Brahma Granti, a knot of the capacity to be able to create. And so our practice today is going to be to try to see if we can soften the knot. If you have something tied into a really tight knot, the first thing you need to do is start to soften the knot so you can start to see the lines of connection that are holding the knot in place. And then we're going to begin to hopefully untie that knot. And rather than having the sense of fear limiting the sense of creation, we're going to try to bring those two forces together in that rather than letting fear register and knot us, it is the initial response to growth, right? When I opened the studio, I was terrified, you guys, terrified of all the potential that happened if it didn't go well. The potential of financial devastation, including the loss of our home, which was something that I had worked on for decades to establish, right? The stress of a relationship with my husband, which, you know, we had been building for many decades, right? But it was my husband who said, do it, just do it. And if we lose the house, so be it. So he began to untie some of those knots of fear because he did it from a place of love. And love is what creates the change from fear becoming a knot to fear becoming a portal of transmission into our heart space. All right, so if we stay stuck here, we won't grow and maybe begin to open up the heart space. And in yoga, so much is about opening the heart. But realistically, we can't go there if we're knotted down here. All right, so that's the kind of opening to this practice. That's the overview. We're wanting to begin to untie the knots, create some softness, create some space, and then create communication that rises up into the heart. Kind of an agni, a fire of uniting these forces of fear and love so that they work together for growth. All right? So, there we have it. All right, we are going to begin in what's sometimes called goddess pose. The Sanskrit term is Baddha Konasana, and it is done in the supine position, so laying back. So Supta, Baddha, bound, angle pose. All right, so what happens is we bind the body into a space where the belly has the opportunity to open. I posted a picture of this pose, and I'm in the pose with lots and lots of padding, and I really encourage you to create a lovely nest. If that nest is your lazy boy, so be it. If it's hard for you to get comfortable on the ground, find a chair that suits you. You can do this in any kind of chair as long as you have enough support to do it. I'm going to demonstrate it coming onto the ground. And it's really handy to have a nice bolster, or again, a big pillow, something that's a little bit firmer than maybe a really soft, squishy pillow, because we really want to support the spine. I like to bolster up under my knees, so I have a couple of yoga blocks. Pillows or blankets can be used fine. I like to also wrap my feet. And if you've been in my classes, you know I take a blanket and I open it up and I create a big noodle out of that blanket. And so that noodle, and I'm doing it really fast here, so don't take too much time, but that noodle can be used to wrap my feet and support my shins. All right, and then also you can take a blanket or two to place either under your arms maybe, so that when you open your arms you're comfortable, or to create a little bit more of a ramp for your spine. So the spine will be somewhat arched, so that the belly will be somewhat open. The knees will be turned out, so we'll be in the external rotation of our thighs. And again, we want the knees supported, but this opens up from the pelvic floor, which is the base of the belly, into the belly, all right? So I'm gonna just quickly get into it. I'm gonna teach from out of it so that you can hear my voice a little bit better, and I'm gonna take you into a meditation once we're in this pose. So if you don't need to see me getting into it, go ahead and start settling in now. If you need to see me, you can watch, but I'm starting by sitting on my bolster, and I'm taking my blanket and wrapping my feet. I'm going to take the ends of the blanket and create kind of a donut, and then I'm going to sit on those ends. So I'm sliding off the bolster and taking the ends of the blanket, placing it under my butt. And you can maybe see how as I relax over the bolster, my spine tips my belly forward. Now I'm bringing the soles of my feet together. So the pinky side of my feet are on the floor. The big toe and arch of my feet are open to the sky. You can take your blocks, place them under your knees so you're totally supported. Arms reach out to the side. Again, if you're up high enough and this feels like too much arch in the back or too much stretch in the chest, then adjust yourself to where you feel completely comfortable, the front of the body open and safe. This is also a time where if there is a lot of fear registering just in creating the physical space of this posture, placing a blanket or maybe a weighted, we have the little sandbags that we put over the belly a lot of times in this space, or maybe along the inner thighs if the sensitivity is more into the groin space, right? So we want to just make sure that we feel completely safe and comfortable in this opening posture. So again, take these next moments, settle in, be picky. I'm going to come out just so that my voice transmits a little bit better as we come into our opening meditation. So be very picky. Take the next few moments and make sure you feel completely comfortable and at ease. And as you find your posture and you feel yourself being supported by all of this softness, sink into it. There's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do, so you might as well just become relaxed and allow yourself to let go. And really important here to not kind of force yourself saying, I need to relax, or I need to let go. It's just an invitation. And as you're inviting yourself to relax and let go, notice any resistance that's coming up. Can you soften your jaw? As you soften your jaw, if you notice it's not softening, move it a little bit. Feel the difference between movement, maybe even clenching your jaw, and then releasing it. Are your eyes able to kind of sink into their sockets? Do you know what that feels like? If you don't, maybe squinch your eyes up for a minute and then relax them. Notice what that feels like. Sometimes we're so tense, we're so tied into knots, we don't know what it feels like to soften and let those knots begin to let go. Maybe you know in your own body where those knots exist. Back of the head, neck, shoulders. Maybe you take a moment and you kind of squinch your shoulders up, and then you let them go and you let your arms become heavier. What does that feel like? So just continue to kind of map through your own body any places that resist this invitation to letting go. You're totally supported. We've created a sense of being okay in this position with blankets, can lay your hands on your belly, or maybe let them drape alongside you. Again, it's totally up to you. Posture gives itself over to the space. And as we begin to settle into the posture and feel that sense of letting go, now the flow of breath can be more and more attuned to. So the body is the portal for flow. And what we want to do is have some sense of what's flowing through us, or what's not flowing through us and getting stuck in us. A feeling of even just simply digesting food. Does it get stuck? Do you have constipation? Or maybe the inability to absorb well what is in the gut, some kind of intestinal problems, IBS, inflammation, allergies. Those are all stagnation in the gut. So just as you're feeling this flow of breath and you're starting to attune yourself now from the posture, which is static, to the flow, which is moving through the space of the posture, notice if the flow itself is interrupted. If it's ragged or rough or feels uncomfortable. Breathing is something we do unconsciously, so there's nothing we need to do here. We're just becoming aware of the flow of breath. And of course, that's the portal into understanding energy of all types. Think about it. When you are fearful, your breath changes. If you're hanging out with friends and you feel safe and somebody cracks a joke, you laugh and you belly laugh. So as you're noticing the flow of breath, now begin to, again, just simply invite it into your belly. And an inhale is an expansion of that lower part of your abdomen. It includes the pelvic floor and the muscles around your belly below your navel. So when you inhale, there's just this gradual spaciousness. And the posture lends itself to opening that space again. So you don't really need to force this sense of space. We're just noticing, can I soften? Can I begin to unknot the constriction? Softening it, allowing the inhale. And then the exhale, there's this natural drawing together, and there's a movement up. I mean, think about it. The exhale comes out from your mouth, out from your nose, whatever's open. So it has to move from the space of the belly inward and upward to be released. In a sense, to be digested. Because it's the exhale that actually initiates the change in our flow of energy in our bodies. And that's a really complex understanding from a biochemical perspective. But the inhale is very important for processing the breath. The exhale is very important for processing the breath. The inhale brings it in, but it is the exhale and what happens in the exhale that creates cellular change. So begin now from noticing your inhale and seeing if you can soften and expand the body to noticing the exhale. And again, without force, What happens during the exhale? Can you feel this drawing in towards your center and up through your heart space, through the throat, through the sinuses, into the nose? Now, if this is challenging for you to just feel it as a sense of just being with it and inviting it, then just stay there, my friends. But if you'd like to create a little bit more energetic presentation of a deep belly breath, then invite the breath to become a little bit deeper on the inhale. Maybe even create a little muscular expansion in the belly and the pelvic floor. So you feel this, it's like a balloon opening in your lower abdomen. And then as you exhale, think about that balloon contracting and drawing inward and upward, right? And you're just inviting this maybe a little bit more deeply, right? So maybe it's a little bit, again, you may be expanding those muscles a little bit. See if you can open up the space. And remember, the pelvic floor is part of the space. And then as you exhale, the pelvic floor contracts, draws up, the belly muscles contract, and follow the diaphragm up to the heart space and then out. So I want you to take about 5 or 10 more breaths like this and just become aware of the flow of movement to whatever degree through the space. And again, it's like taking that crazy tied up knot and just beginning to notice, like, where are the crossovers? Where are the difficult parts to unwind? All right, so a couple more breaths like that. Inhaling spaciousness, kind of opening up the knot. Exhaling, kind of starting to see how these things align, how they draw together in a way that is flowing through you rather than stagnating, creating what we call ama, or stickiness in the belly. Right? We're trying to feel the flow up into the heart, into the head. All right? So as you finish these last couple of breaths, you just kind of, if you were creating a little more force, a little more air through, then relinquish that. Relinquish everything and just pause and just notice how you feel. Notice if it feels okay for you to access this space or if you had some resistance to it. And then we're going to just start to move into it, right? So if there was some resistance, it's okay. We aren't going to solve all of our fears in one yoga session, all right? So what I invite you to do now is just to take the next few moments and just gently come out of the posture of that bound angle or Supta Baddha Konasana. If you take your thighs and you just kind of gently rub them with your fingers and then slowly bring your knees back together. Roll to one side and stay there for a few moments. And then we're going to be laying back again, but more flat on our mats. So take the time you need to settle out of your opening posture. And if you still need some support, especially under your head or neck, then you can use a blanket and just kind of create a little bit of a support under your head or neck. But we want our lower back to be, again, fully supported, but this time, instead of kind of tipping the belly forward like we were in our posture, we want to find a way to be kind of more neutral. And we're going to start with some pelvic rocks so we notice what that feels like. Okay? So you're laying back. I'm going to maybe scoot a little closer here. No, I can't scoot closer when I lay down. It's always a challenge to be on the camera, but not too far away from it. Okay, so again, I'm just kind of taking my bolster under my head and just rolling up that blanket a little bit. Let's start with bent knees. Feet on the floor, and just take a moment, wiggle your toes. And again, maybe even take your hands to your lower belly so you can feel this movement. But we're going to just take pelvic tucks front to back, okay? So pelvic tuck to the back of the body means that your lower back presses in more to your mat and the tailbone lifts off, kind of like the start of a bridge. And then we're going to take it the other direction where the tailbone presses into the mat and the lower back arches off of the mat and the belly kind of spills forward in that way we just were in our posture. Right, so just rock back and forth. You can also combine this with the breath, and as you inhale, the belly opens into that arch, kind of fill it fully, and then slow exhale, starting with the pelvic tilt at the root, at the pelvic floor. Exhale slowly, squeeze the pelvic floor, squeeze the belly, move the breath towards the heart. Right, so inhale as the belly opens, exhale as the belly closes, but start it at the base of the belly in the pelvic floor, moving up. So 2 or 3 more of these. And then what we'll do is we're going to find, like, where is the between space? So where is my pelvis flat? My belly's neither arching up like that inhale, nor is it being pushed back like the exhale, but there's room for both. Once you find that, become gently firm in your placement of your pelvis. So the belly is staying stable. And what we're going to do is we're going to slowly lift one knee at a time and lower. So as you lift a knee, you might feel there's a challenge to the belly. Go slowly, and you might, since the belly's challenged, to control the weight of that leg, maybe this is a time to exhale. Then inhale while the leg is up. And again, as we put the leg down, that's the point of challenge, right? We have to control our pelvis so that we don't arch our back. So maybe exhale as the leg goes down. So this can be a very slow process depending on your challenges. If you have a really well-developed sense of your gut, of your belly, and you can stay stable and just breathe normally and lift and lower your legs, feel free to find the pace that's right for you. We're going to challenge a little bit more here. And we'll begin to lift both legs. I really want you to start this with the slower pattern. So exhale as you lift both legs. Inhale here, the thighs are vertical, so there's a little less challenge. And then exhale as you lower your feet and legs back down. No movement in the belly, right? We're connecting the energy through. So the only movement is the breath movement. No arching of the belly, no pressing of the back into the mat. We're just keeping it neutral. Again, once you get a sense of staying stable in the belly and moving the legs, maybe your pace can pick up, right? Doesn't have to. We're just creating this portal of energy through movement and breath, and trying to keep it so both are accessible at the same time. Take maybe 1 or 2 more of these, and then relax. Now we're going to just drop our knees to one side. So just let your legs fall. Knees fall to one side. You don't have to control anything. We're just taking a passive twist here. So as your legs get heavy to a side, just kind of notice how that feels through your abdomen and also through your side body. And you can take even more of a twist here, reaching your arm overhead as you feel that little bit of diagonal relationship from the center of the belly to the sides of the belly and into the sides of the hip. And maybe just kind of notice your breath here. The inhale expanding, but expanding kind of out this way now. And again, the exhale drawing inward and then towards the head. Right? Couple more breaths on that side. Whenever you're ready, you're going to come up and you'll just roll the other way. The knees, the hips will fall the other way. And again, you can just allow yourself to get heavy in that direction. Pause. Notice your breath. Expand your breath if you feel like you would like to. Maybe expand the space for your breath by reaching your arm overhead. And just be there. Again, we want to facilitate flow through our abdomen. And so first thing is we have to create the space for it. We have to untie the knots, and then we can begin to bring the lines together, right? And so bringing your knees back up, we've worked on the lines front to back. Now we're working on these oblique lines, so the kind of the edges of the knot, if you will. So what we're going to do first of all is feet on the floor. Bring your knees together. You can, let me find a block. You can put a block between your knees if you'd like, and that just kind of reminds you to keep your knees together, to keep some integration between your knees, right? So now we're going to think more about when the knees fall to the side, they stay together. And we're going to bring them back up, and then we're going to bring them to the other side. Knees stay together. Right, so a block, a piece of paper works. It doesn't matter. It's not about being heavy. It's about being aware. And again, as we're taking these moves, when is it the challenging time for you, and when do you need to create flow from? It's usually in the twist, right? And then as we come back here, our legs kind of are heavy. They bring us back to the space. So maybe you're exhaling as you're coming into the twist, and inhaling as you come back to center. But if you feel like it's a different sensation to you, then you work with what feels right for you. I don't like to direct people's breath necessarily, because me directing your breath can create a knot. Like, I don't want to breathe when she tells me to breathe, right? So don't create more knots. Like, the fear of doing it wrong is a huge fear, right? So what we're trying to do is not become knotted in fear, okay? So you can absolutely keep your feet on the ground and just keep rolling like that, or you can take the next challenge. And again, it's a challenge of flow, and we want the direction to come through. So maybe you bring your knees a little bit more over your hips, feet off the floor. And as you go side to side, now you're taking more weight into the movement, right? And again, I want you to move with your breath. Try not to hold your breath. Move in a way that feels right to you. Notice sometimes as we get challenged here, we bring our knees closer to the chest. What's that doing to our pelvis? It's changing the relationship through our belly. We're trying to keep the pelvis, when we're in this neutral position of our knees and feet, pelvis should be flat, right? It does roll to the side with our knees, but when we come back to center, our knees are coming closer, right? If you want to challenge yourself more, you can bring the knees away, but not with arching the back, all right? So find what's right for you, take a few more. Now we're starting to feel fire. Right? And the fire helps to digest and transform the knots. We'll take one or two more of these, whatever degree of heat is right for you. And then when you're ready, release. Maybe drop those knees back out to the side. Let the belly space open and cool. All right, so we'll bring our knees back up. We're going to come into a bridge pose here. And again, maybe you have the block between your knees, and the feet should be directly under the knees. Squeeze the block so you can maybe feel how that activates the pelvic floor. It creates tension in the pelvic floor. All right, and we are going to try to draw the energy up and through. So for a moment, relax the block, feel that spaciousness, because we don't want to hold tension. Tension is like holding the knot, right? Now then, squeezing the block slowly, feel the tension coming up through the pelvic floor. Tip the pelvis so that your lower back is on the floor pressing in. Tailbone is lifting. And now it's like you're exhaling. You're going to draw that energy through your belly and come up into a bridge. Not a bridge where your back is arched, but a bridge where the pelvis is tipped into that posterior view. And I'm not coming up very far. It doesn't matter how far you come up. That's where we get into these knots of confusion over what the goal is. It's not as high as it is. It's about drawing that energy through, right? And then we're going to slowly lower down. And I want you to try to drop one vertebrae at a time through your lower back. So notice when you clunk down, when you give it up, right? And I think we all have a little lack of mobility in that lower back. I know I do. So I have to go very slow through this. And I can't go very high because my lack of flow through my lower back is in the space just above the sacrum. So I'm just working there. It's very small, but it's hard. And I can feel that when I come up, I'm drawing that air, that breath through. I'm exhaling, pulling up, not very far. And when I exhale, or when I go down, I have to exhale down too, because I have to still work pretty strongly through that belly. You can probably hear my voice kind of squeaking a bit when I'm doing that. So ignite the fire according to what's right for you. We're going to take one or two more of these, squeezing the block, tipping the pelvis, lifting the lower back, and then reversing that. But again, the breath is still moving up even as we are lowering down. So now we're starting to pull the knot apart. Okay, one or two more. And then relax, pause, and just take a moment and notice how that feels. What did it feel like to work through some of the constriction there, either in the twist or in the bridge work? And then we're going to shift positions again, and we're going to come into a tabletop position, an all fours position. I'm going to invite you, if you have some padding, to place it under your knees, because we'll be coming upright in an upright kneeling position eventually. And you can even, if you have a bolster, you can use your bolster, you can use a couple of blankets, whatever feels right for you, but we will be coming up. So take your time, arrange your props in a way that feels right for you. So I'm putting a couple of blankets under me. I'm gonna tip just a little bit. All right, and there we go. We're gonna just start with that pelvic rocking cat and cow movement in this position. I want you to pay attention to what's going on in your lower back. So sometimes, just turn a little sideways here. Sometimes when we do cat and cow, we just move through the space in between, like here, between the ribs and the lower back, and the waistline, right? We pop it up and we drop it down. What I'd like you to do is really just focus on rolling through that lower back like we just did, and then coming back through from the ribs to the lower back into cow. So really not worried about the head or shoulders at all. Just stay in the belly. How much can you articulate through your lower spine and hips? One or two more. Go slow through here. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to start to bring it up, but we're going to come into that upright kneeling position from this work down in our bottoms. So if it's difficult for you to be in all fours in this place, you could absolutely come onto a chair and roll up from there. Or you can maybe not be quite so low to the floor. Maybe you put blocks or that bolster or something under your hands. But we're going to start by rolling through that lower back. Pause, get it as much rounded as you can, as much cat pose as you can through here. The tailbone's tucking down. We're feeling the belly pulling inward and upward. And then slowly continue to pull up from your belly to your ribs, shoulders, neck and head. And then we're going to roll back down. And again, this is slow. This is about bringing awareness through. If you try to untie a knot really fast, it just gets worse, right? So go slow. Start to drop the head. Start to feel the weight of the head and the shoulders. Notice what happens in the belly. Roll slowly through the ribs. Continue to really pull through the belly as you lower down. And again, notice how, see how I'm dropping back? Because I'm not strong enough to roll through completely stable. And it's okay. I am where I am. You are where you are. Just notice your accommodations, your ways to keep the knots in place, right? My dropping back is just my response to fear. When I'm afraid of something, when I'm challenged by something, I drop back away from it. So it's just awareness, right? Right about here, I start to feel the challenge. Notice how my hips drop back. It's okay. It is what it is. But once I notice it, I can start to work through it. So I'm going to pull myself forward a little bit more here. I'm going to see, can I work here slower? There's the drop back, right? And then come up. Whew, that one was harder, okay? So one or two more. Again, your pace is fine. Finding, maybe in that drop back, maybe what I do is I stay here, stay here, stay here. Bring the block under my arms. Come here so I'm not dropping back. And then work on rolling through, bending my arms, but taking some of the weight, some of the burden off this untying. It didn't reduce the fire. It just created the space for me to be able to work through it, through the intensity of the fire. So again, maybe I take my hands to the block, didn't drop back that time. Where can I take the weight and come up? All right, I'm going to roll down one more time. I'm using my block. There's that point of me dropping back. So I'm using the block to help me stay forward and to work where I am. Now we're going to come up and we're going to come into a lunge position and we're going to revisit that twisting action. So you're going to just bring a knee forward. Doesn't matter which one because we're going to do both sides. I've got my foot directly under my knee. And again, you may be using your block or maybe you use your shin this time. I'm going to begin this rolling up. Nice and slow. As I come up, I'm just going to turn front ways. One of the ways, oops, losing balance as I turn. One of the ways, I'm going to maybe show you my t-shirt here. One of the ways that I can accommodate a lack of capacity to move in a balanced way through the spaces, can you see how this knee forward hip is much higher than the knee on the ground? I've rotated, I've turned myself to some extent, accommodating my limitations here. So this is where it's really important to get grounded. And remember how we had the block or a piece of paper or whatever between our knees and we squeezed it together so we could feel the pelvic floor coming into our posture. So I'm just going to pretend I've got something, kind of weird shape between my knees, and I'm going to squeeze. And notice what happens here. There is this leveling. My pelvis rotated and leveled. All right? And then I'm going to think about leveling it from front to back, so taking out any pelvic tilt. My tendency is to tilt forward in this position. So I tilt forward and I rotate. I'm going to squeeze the knees. That takes out the rotation. And then I'm going to drop the tailbone. That takes out the tilt. So take some time here and adjust so that this if you think of a central line from the center of your pelvic floor up through your belly, it's in alignment with your heart. Okay? So I'm opening up the channel of potential. I've untied the knot as much as I can. Now I want to draw that energy through. And I'm going to work just here on a few inhales and exhales, right? So again, I'm going to inhale and expand the belly as much as I can in this position. It's not very far, so it starts to move out to the sides right away. And then exhaling, and as I exhale, I think about drawing the knees together, pulling up through the root, into the heart space, out through the neck and head. And again, these are a little bit more energized breaths. Where can you be with this? Now that I'm going to start to twist, what I'm going to do is put my hands on my heart and begin to rotate towards my knee. So everything below here is stable, and now instead of moving my knees to the side, I'm moving my chest to the side. Right? A more challenging way is to bring the hands up and to rotate a little more deeply by engaging the shoulders. What's right for you, just make sure that as you rotate your heart, you don't lose what's happening down here, right? So, and again, I'm exhaling as I come into it. And then inhale and come back out. So now we're going to move back and forth. So I always think of like a knot, like now we've got it untangled somewhat. Now we have to kind of work into those deeper little smaller tangles. It usually helps to kind of to create some softening there, right? So softening a little bit more. Inhaling here. Exhale, stay stable through the lower body. Draw that exhale up as you twist. So now we're bringing in the sides. We're starting to feel this broader movement up. And then when you're ready, inhale, come back. Exhale, rotate. So several of these. And again, you're probably feeling some fire, some heat building, melting some of the constriction. We're going to take one or two more. Again, your pace, your arm position, it's all up to you. This is you working through your body. What feels right? All right, we're going to roll back down slowly, finding the floor, and then take a little break between sides. So your break might be child's pose, just kind of resting back, might be staying in tabletop, might be coming through a downward facing dog, or even a flow. What feels like just a release for you? And sometimes our release is quiet, and sometimes our release is more active. So just take a few moments before we switch sides. It's always a chance for me to get a drink of water. And then when you're ready, you're going to bring your other knee forward, okay? Your other favorite knee is going to come forward, okay? Again, my challenges of being seen, which isn't really my purpose, right? I don't want to be seen, but sometimes you need to see me. I want you to see yourself, right? And I have this crazy screen in front of me that shows me myself. All right, so other knee forward. when you're ready, and again, maybe you have your block, maybe you move up your shin, maybe you don't need that, start at the lower back. Go slow. Create as much space as you can through your lower back. Come up by pulling energy up through. And I'm going to just move back because now my head is cut off. So once you're up and you're kneeling, okay, begin to think about what's happening in my gut. Am I tipping? Am I tilting? How can I correct any accommodations that are happening in my body, right? What's shifted from being aligned? And alignment alignment is everything in relationship to everything, right? Alignment isn't stagnant or one way of being, but what's our purpose now? Our purpose is to align our gut with our heart. So we move from the knot of fear to the growth that happens when we can move energy from here into the heart. And again, it's just like digestion. What happens in our gut? We break down things so that our blood picks it up, and then the heart moves that nourished blood into all of our cells. Goes from the gut to the heart, right? And really from the heart straight to the head, right? The heart is really close to your head because it's pumping right into that head. So align gut, heart, and head so that the transmission of energy is aligned along that center channel. Nothing magic about standing in a specific position, but there's magic in understanding why. And then we work through the how. How can we do this? Okay. And then the what. What are we trying to do? We're trying to feel this movement. And we're going to slowly, as you're ready, as you're aligned as best you can, we're going to move into our twist, our gentle lunge twist. Right? And we're trying to stay heart over gut, head over heart. And again, maybe you take a moment and you just like check yourself as you come into your twist. Before we start to pulse, so that's saying, check yourself so you don't wreck yourself, right? Don't wreck your intention. You won't hurt yourself if you're if you're not aligned, right? But you may not accomplish your goal. Once you feel what's happening in your twist, and it may be different on this side than the other side, then we'll begin those pulses with your breath. Exhale as you come in. Feel the draw inward and upward. Inhale as you create the space of unwinding. And just pulse back and forth in a way that feels right to you. We're going to take several more of these. You can feel how good it feels. Once you've pulled the strings tight, notice how good it feels to release, right? How good it feels to come back to the center. So again, just taking it several times according to your pace, in your way. Hands can be up, right? Remember, you don't need me to feel you. I'm just here to give you a brief view. So if you don't understand my vocalization, you'll take it in through your sense of seeing. But I really want you to communicate and see what's happening inside of you. All right, one or two more times according to your pace. And then as you're ready, you're going to slowly roll out of it. Come back with your arms to the floor. And maybe you take a rest in child's pose. Maybe you go down dog. Maybe you take a flow. And then eventually, I want you to come back into a restful position. I want you to start to come into a quiet position. I want you to feel the energy of that work, the heat, called tapas. You know, we created an intention and we stuck with it. And we feel the response to that, which is heat. And the heat is what transforms us ultimately. What unties the knots. All right, and as you come into a quieter position, we're going to slowly get ready for our final meditation. So whatever you need to do, any stretches that feel good to you, take them. I'm not going to demonstrate 100 different stretches, right? Because by now you've awoken a sense of connection and you know what you need. Fear binds us in a place of not knowing. And the interesting thing is that knowledge itself can become fearful. Not knowing enough. I don't know what to do. Right? Or knowing too much. I feel responsible because I know so much and I don't know what to do with that knowledge. Either way, knowledge itself can bring us to a place of fear. So I want you to just trust your process here. Do whatever moves feel good to you. Feel it from your gut. Stretch, wiggle, and then come to a place of stillness again. So maybe you come back into the opening posture, bound angle, and you just kind of notice what it feels like to come back to where we started. Or maybe you want to come into Shavasana, just laying flat on your back. Maybe you want to just come into a seat, and I'm going to just stay in a seat so that, again, my voice is transmitted better. But find your way. Trust that you know what you need. And then come back to just the simple observation of flow. And you might even feel it not only just in your breath, but because we got the heart kind of heated up from this transmission through, maybe you can feel your pulse. Maybe you can feel it out in your arms or down into your legs and your neck. Maybe you can feel some other senses of energy, a sense of heat out in your extremities or tingling. Just notice. What did we untie and release in ourselves? One of the, maybe the most difficult lessons that were given to me over the last 5 days, the thing that was hardest to digest, is the responsibility each of us carry to truly pay attention to ourselves. Hard for many of us. I think especially if we are caregivers or fixers. We like to help. But unless that is done from a space of deep love, and think about who you're trying to fix, help, heal. Do you love them? Is it just flowing out of you? And do they give you permission to love them that deeply? Because really, ultimately, if we're trying to fix others, it's coming from a place of ego, because most of us have knots in ourselves that we need to untie first. And so we're bypassing those knots and moving into the head thinking, I can fix myself by fixing others. It's a hard lesson. And the other hard lesson was that we're inherently, because we're not really working through ourselves, we're inherently ultimately responsible for what ripples out. And I'm just going to give a concrete example of this. How many of you suck in your gut when you get a picture taken of yourself? I do. I've been taught that I need to look a certain way. And part of that way of looking, as a person who presents as a female in a society that is very judgmental of female bodies, I present myself as the societal norm, sucking in my gut, trying to make myself look thin so I am acceptable. But my doing that is out of fear, because I feel like if I don't, I'm not acceptable. And when I try to conform to that norm, which is diminishing of myself, I'm literally making myself smaller, I'm tying knots in myself tighter, then I am carrying forth that societal norm. I'm bringing it out. And if you enjoy thinking of things in energy or vibrations, I'm energetically transmitting tension in the gut. A societal norm that doesn't let women have abdomens. I'm carrying it forward. The responsibility is on me for that societal norm. Because my fear is pulling that into myself, and that's what's being transmitted back out through. Hard lesson. As you're laying here in stillness, let go. Let go of the need to present yourself as something other than you are. What labels have you put on? What constrictions have you created? Breathe easy, my friend, because ultimately there is no not. You have been created through love, and it is the transmission of love that is your only responsibility. But it has to start inside of you, and you have to be willing to see all the entanglements. What keeps love from flowing truly? If you feel the need to fix someone, then you don't love them as they are. You're not seeing them. You're not really understanding them as they are, as a perfect person transmitting love. And maybe they don't have the capacity that you have to transmit love, but that's not your responsibility. That's their journey. When you can see them truly in love, there's no need to fix, because you see it as a vast expression of the power of love. So tap into that in yourself. Your breath is because your body loves itself. It wants to continue in this life. If it didn't adhere to that, it would simply fall apart. And anything that constricts that breath, other than your own heat, your own desire, your own wish for growth, your own growth of love within yourself, anything that diminishes that breath from an external way is diminishing your capacity to be a conduit of love. Again, as we move into that meditation, I invite you to stay for however long feels right for you. Allow the breath to flow, the love that that breath brings to you to be moved into every cell of your body through your heart. And I hope that when you come out of this meditation, you feel the freedom to breathe with ease, to love without constriction, to transcend the self, and to let love filter out from you, through you, into this world. It does need you. It just doesn't need you to fix it. It just needs you to love it. May it be so.